So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on addressing good health and well-being through service learning. My name is Amy Muirs. I'm the CEO for the National Youth Leadership Council, and I'm really excited to be here to discuss this important topic with you all today. And if you just joined and didn't hear my announcement, there is a link in the chat function to check into the webinar to receive a certificate. So if you would like a certificate of completion for the webinar, if you need that for your professional development, go ahead and check in. Or even if you don't, we would love for you to check in and let us know that you were here. So check out that link in the chat function. And I want to just take this opportunity to say congratulations to Miss Isabella Sullivan from our Youth Advisory Council for her graduation from high school, and welcome her as our special trainer and speaker today. So, Bella, congratulations.
Thank you so much. As Amy said, I am a recent high school graduate. Well, I actually technically graduate tomorrow, but I'm pretty much done. And I am a member of the Youth Advisory Council for NYLC, and I'm really excited to be able to be on this webinar today to get to talk to you guys about good health and well-being through service learning.
Wonderful. You know, I love to start off our webinars by sharing a quote. And this is one of my favorites because it really reminds me of why NYLC does the work that it does. And it's tell me and I forget, teach me and I remember, involve me and I learn. And it really speaks to the mission of NYLC, which was really about creating a more just, sustainable, and peaceful world with young people, their schools, and their communities through service learning. So we know that when youth are active participants in their own education, they discover the positive impact they can have on the world, and that's when that real learning occurs. And so with that, our vision is that we want to see all young people become those civically informed and engaged citizens by participating in service learning during their formative years. So it's a great reminder, that quote's a great reminder to me and to those of us at NYLC that, you know, it's about the learning that changes, that has the power to change the world. I wanted to share just a little bit about the organization, and I'm going to invite Bella to share a little bit about our Developing Young Leaders. But first, I wanted to talk a little bit about how we support educators. We provide a number of professional development opportunities and resources, from these types of webinars to handbooks and toolkits and the K-12 standards for service learning that really help educators advance their practice. We publish resources that allow educators to get started immediately in service learning and use it as a strategy to engage their students. We have a great new series called Engage, and it's designed for after-school programs, and it supports educators wherever they are. So if it's online, we have a brand new publication that I'm going to talk about a little later that supports online service learning. Or if it's in person, it's designed to lead you through 13 weeks of the service learning process with students. And we also look at advancing the field of service learning. We've been the host of the National Service Learning Conference for the past 31 years. We also have a great service learning network, which is home to handbooks and these toolkits and on-demand professional development. And we really try to support the advancement of service learning through advocacy and education. We know service learning is a powerful tool, and that when it's used well and with quality, it can engage young people, even those who really struggle with traditional educational systems. Bella, can you share a little bit about our Developing Young Leaders work?
Yes. So NYLC has around 3 programs that are mainly focused around young people. Those are the Youth Advisory Council, Project Ignition, and Youth for Education. The Youth Advisory Council is a student council for the NYLC. So we work with NYLC to give them direct youth voice and opinions while manifesting strong youth adult partnerships with the adults that work at NYLC. Project Ignition, for more than 10 years, NYLC has worked in partnership with teams of students across the country to address the #1 killer of teens, which is car crashes. Project Ignition supports young people in using service learning to address the root causes of traffic deaths, like seatbelt use, distracted driving, and more. And Youth for Education is an after-school program designed by the Youth Advisory Council that's aimed at helping with education equity and how service learning can help students have equitable access to a strong education.
Wonderful. Thanks for sharing, Bella. We want to turn our attention to good health and well-being. Bella, do you want to share a little bit about our topic for today's webinar?
Sure. So good health and well-being is the 3rd Sustainable Development Goal. And as we know now more than ever, good health and well-being is a very important thing in our society. Because of COVID-19, systems have been kind of turned upside down, and we're all challenged to redefine learning, whether we're young people or adults. And there was one recent article that said that these times aren't just focused on finding new ways to do distance learning, but on a pandemic pedagogy. Young people can find opportunities to address their community's health needs, from mental health services to mitigate feelings of isolation during a pandemic, to after-school nutrition programs through service learning.
Awesome. Thank you. So before we really dive into the topic of health and well-being, and Bella's really our resident expert on that, so we're going to do some fun interviewing with her, and I encourage you throughout to please add your questions to the chat, and we'll make sure to get to those toward the end of our session. But we really want to take a moment and just make sure that we're all grounded in what service learning is. So NYLC defines service learning as an approach to teaching and learning in which students use academic and civic knowledge and skills to address a genuine community need. So it's that powerful pedagogy that takes students out of the classroom and places them in their communities as change agents. And when I say places them in their communities, it doesn't mean that the service that they're doing has to occur directly in the community, but it's for and with and in partnership with the community. There are numerous definitions of service learning. Some of them are, there's one that says that service learning is a form of experiential education, and it consciously combines community needs with students' learning activities so that students and community agencies can achieve mutual benefit by working together. Because there's so many different definitions of service learning, I want to just jump in a little bit about what is community service and what is service learning. So many times, again, we see a lot of confusion around the differences between these two terms. And service learning, service learning is a process, and community service can happen as part of the school day, but that doesn't make it service learning. So we want to make sure that we understand community service is an activity that engages young people in their school and community. It can sometimes have reflection, but many times it may not. It may lack that critical reflection. But as you can see from this slide, community service or volunteering, it does meet the needs of people in the community. It could be a one-time event, or it could be a reoccurring commitment to volunteer. Service learning, though, must meet the needs of the community, and it needs to include a learning component. So that could be anything from academic, civic, leadership, social, emotional skills, or another specified outcome like career pathways. Service learning follows a structured process to meet both service goals and learning goals. And reflection is an essential part of the experience. It provides context to the problem and an effort to understand underlying causes happens through the service learning process. Service learning also helps students make the connections to those learnings outside of the classroom. It's hands-on, but really most importantly, it connects to the community and empowers each student to lead change, and not as that liberator of the community, but rather in true partnership with the community. So service learning asked educators to really think differently about how they engage their students in the classroom or outside of the classroom in your programs. It flips what a traditional classroom would look like. Instead of a lot more lecture and direction, whether it's the use of media or the practice of doing something, you see students working together in groups as teams. And what I think is really exciting and important about service learning is that you see students really teaching and leading other students. And then the teachers or the after-school program leads become really those guides that are helping facilitate the students' learning process and that journey of self-discovery. And again, this really holds true in after-school programs as well. You see young people, they're engaged and invested because they have a voice in the process and they see themselves as contributing members of the community. So community service and volunteering is very important work, but it's the act of service where service learning is the full process of engaging students. So I wanted to share that obviously there are numerous outcomes for service learning. If we can ask you to remember just one, again, it's that young people are leaders today, not someday in the future when they're adults, but right now. And that knowledge really motivates them to do more and learn more. And so NYLC uses the backwards planning approach to service learning. So here you can see in stage 1 and stage 2, educators first identify what outcomes they want for their students. So again, that could be those academic, civic, character outcomes. So you define what skills and knowledge that you want your young people to walk away with. Then you determine what evidence you're going to accept so that you know that they've learned those identified outcomes. So that could be the evidence that you could collect could be in the form of presentations, reports. It could be an event that they do to demonstrate what they've learned, personal reflections. There are so many different ways that educators can ensure that those young people have mastered the new skill and knowledge. So what we're going to really concentrate on today through health and well-being is the stage 3 of the process called IPARD. And again, this is the investigation, planning and preparation, the action or that service volunteering opportunity, reflection and demonstration. And this is where the students are engaged. Through this process, this is where the students are engaging in service learning. So when they investigate that community need, they can plan and prepare for what action they want to take. Then and only then do they serve. Reflection is incorporated throughout, but reflection after the activity really helps for that depth of learning. And then the students demonstrate and share their knowledge with others. So again, we're going to focus on how students can address health and well-being during this IPARD process. So Bella is our resident expert here, so I wanted to ask her to share some of her experiences with us today. So again, please feel free to jump in and ask questions in the chat box, and we'll get to those at the end of our session here. So Bella, why don't you tell us about a health issue that you've addressed by using service learning?
Okay, so in my freshman year, my family, we got in a car accident that was the result of a distracted motorcyclist. And so from that point, I knew that there was something that I wanted to do along the lines of addressing distracted driving in my community. So me and other leaders at my school started researching distracted driving statistics and found that distracted driving is one of the leading causes of behind teen deaths, not only in the nation, but in Tennessee. So using that information, we brainstormed ways to make our school more informed on the dangers of distracted driving. We decided to hold a safe driving rally in our school and to invite community members and leaders to come speak to our students. We also worked closely with the Monroe Carroll Jr. Children's Hospital at Vanderbilt's Trauma and Surgery Department to ensure that we were doing things that were going to be effective and things that were going to have an impact on the people of our community. We followed the IPARD process pretty closely in order to ensure that our project ran as smoothly as possible.
Can you tell us a little bit more about how you determined that distracted driving, obviously you had a personal experience, but how distracted driving was a community issue that needed it to be addressed?
So our town, everyone always jokes about how we have the worst drivers in Tennessee. Um, But whenever our student council learned that distracted driving is one of the main causes of death for thousands of teens across the state, we knew that something had to be done. So a few months prior to beginning our driving rally planning, a group of former students from our high school were actually killed in a distracted driving related accident. So the topic was very close to our students' hearts. And we figured that since high school students are new drivers and they're getting their licenses and spending the first 1 or 2 years on the road while also being high school students, teaching them safe driving habits early on would be more effective and would definitely leave more of an impact on how these children or how these teens are going to be driving in the future.
Who did you engage as community partners to help with your project?
So whenever we actually had the rally, we had several people from the community come. For example, we got our city and county mayors, workers from the local hospital, car insurance companies, a funeral home director, and people from community organizations that deal with distracted driving related deaths, like Sons Against Drunk Driving and Mothers Against Drunk Driving. We also had people from the Ford Driving Skills for Life program come speak to our students. So that was really cool. And before our rally, we met with people from the Tennessee Department of Transportation and the Tennessee Department of Highway Safety with a petition to trim trees on one of the most traveled roads in our town. This spot would have several accidents per week, pretty much almost one per day, due to visibility issues. So after meeting with them, our community saw a significant decrease in the number of accidents that happened on that road.
That's amazing. Did you find any challenges when reaching out to partners? Where, sometimes I think when we're going through the IPARD process, that idea of reaching out to community partners and asking them to be part of what you're doing can be a little intimidating. So did you and the rest of your team run into anything that you could share?
We definitely had to get over the fear of not being taken seriously, but luckily our community is really focused on helping each other, and we're like a very connected community. So the leaders and the adults that live near us were very understanding and were very willing to help. It also helped that we had really strong adults working with us within our school, like my mom, and they helped us kind of get the footing that we needed to create the confidence to get out and to talk to these people that had a lot of influence in the community.
Awesome. Thank you. Were there some reflection techniques that you guys used throughout your process that reinforced what you were learning and helped with the process?
Definitely. So aside from just the leadership council talking to our friends and seeing, what the regular students were thinking about this campaign, we conducted parking lot audits to see how many students in our school's parking lots were using their cell phones while leaving campus in the afternoons. So we would have days where our leadership council would stand at the exits of both of our parking lots, and we would see, we would kind of like tally down the number of people that were using their cell phones while driving. So we used this data to reflect on our rally and to determine that what we had done was impactful. We also held leadership team meetings throughout the course of our Safe Driving campaign in order to reflect on student responses and to see what we could do that would be more engaging or what we could do that would be easier to understand.
Awesome. So I think you touched on this a little bit, but what were the changes that you saw in your community?
So by doing the parking lot audits, we were able to get a lot of data for our school. So by the end of the campaign, we saw a 10% decrease in the amount of students using their cell phones while leaving campus, which this was really big for us because our school is only around 1,500 students. So that meant that around 150 students had gotten this message and had kind of implemented it in their daily lives, which was really, really fun. We also saw that the students in our school were getting in less accidents in the parking lots and stuff like that, from not using their phones while people are trying to get out of the building. So yeah, we saw a 10% decrease, and that was really, really exciting.
That's amazing. What did you learn about yourself and your community through the process?
So as I said earlier, our community is notorious for having terrible drivers, but we are a community that's willing to change old habits for the safety of others. So during this process, I learned that safe driving is something that not only I'm really passionate about, but that others in my community are passionate about, and that it's something that I shouldn't be scared to speak out on. So now when I'm in the car with friends and, they try to change the song or like they try to send their mom a text message, I always speak up and I'm like, hey, let me do that for you because that's not safe. It's not safe for anyone, but especially not for people that have only been driving for about a year or two, just because you don't have the confidence behind the wheel that other drivers have. But that doesn't mean that adults need to be using their phones behind the wheel either, because any distraction is a big distraction.
Exactly. Thank you. Very well said. Can you talk a little bit about the knowledge and skills that you gained from this experience?
So by directing this campaign, I developed really strong public speaking skills since I was presenting statistics and solutions to students and community leaders practically on a weekly basis. I had many instances where we got our entire school into the gym and I had to speak to them with a microphone while trying not to, pass out from nervousness. And I had to speak to our mayors and other community leaders, which is very nerve-wracking for a freshman in high school. I was like 14, really scared that they weren't going to take me seriously, but I learned that if I believe in myself and if I'm passionate enough about something, that the people that I care about hearing it will actually take the time to listen. So that was really empowering. And I also learned how to be the safest driver I can be. If you ask my mom, she'll tell you that I am way too safe of a driver. I'm super cautious all the time. And I definitely can attribute that to the Safe Driving campaign.
That's amazing. Would you encourage educators to use service learning as to address health and well-being?
Definitely. Because service learning creates a more hands-on approach to education, it definitely increases student engagement. And young people love to feel like they're helping to make a difference in the world, and service learning allows them to do so while also giving them an avenue to learn about what they're doing. It makes confusing topics like health and well-being more understandable and more digestible because students are able to connect what they're learning to something tangible.
Thanks, Bella. You did a great job of leading us through the service learning process of IPARD through the work that you've done on teen driver safety, which is one of so many different topics that young people can address that are related to health and well-being. Again, if you have questions, please post them in our chat box. But as you're reflecting on what Bella shared, I wanted to just talk a little bit about how we know that students can really lead change in addressing issues related to physical, emotional, or economic well-being of our communities. And that community, it could be the classroom, it could be in your after-school program, it could be the school, or it could be the city or the world. So it's really where young people reside and how large of an impact that they want to try to make. And we know that when young people go through this service learning process, like Bella stated, they really become those agents of change who are making a positive impact on the world. So they're leaders today, again, not someday in some distant future. And that's really the power of service learning. Again, I think Bella said it perfectly when she talked about, being able to make that change and contribution right now. And then I also wanted to share, again, we have dedicated, NYLC is dedicated to providing resources so that you can engage your students in addressing issues that they care about through service learning. And so we understand that students are really being directly affected by this pandemic. And so we have a brand new resource that we launched today. It's a retooling of our health and well-being handbook, and it's for online service learning. And so again, this resource, it's designed to facilitate and lead young people through 13 weeks of the IPARD process in about 1-hour sessions. And it's these topic-focused toolkits are companions to our Engage series. So you can shorten or lengthen your sessions by using the Engage handbooks themselves. But each session includes team building activities, reflections, and it ensures that students are getting those 21st century skills like critical thinking, collaboration, communication, creativity. And it's also ideal for exercising those social and emotional skills like self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. Within the online service learning version, we're also providing ideas for online service activities, but also service that can be done safely in isolation within the community. So again, this handbook is part of the larger Engage series, and we're focusing on the United Nations Development Goals. So I encourage you to check out the resources. They're free for anyone to use, and they're in our Service Learning Resource Center. You do need to join the Service Learning Network to access those. But again, I encourage you to take a look and see if it's something that you can do with your students this summer. I think everyone is ready to take action and wants to contribute. But we can do that through the service learning process and make sure that we're also developing new skills and knowledge and while we're giving. In addition to these handbooks, we also have a full slate of upcoming webinars, including one on May 27th, and that one's going to focus on K-8 online service learning. So we have some great recorded sessions that can help you engage with older high school students. This webinar is really going to show you what you can do with those younger students, whether it's on when we're online with them. And if you can't make the online or the live session, we'll have the on-demand recordings in our Service Learning Resource Center. Bella, I think, let's see, it doesn't appear that we have any specific questions for you. Do you have any final reflections that you'd like to share with the group?
I think it's really important for us to end this webinar where we began with this quote from Benjamin Franklin. Tell me and I forget, teach me and I remember, involve me and I learn. When students are engaging in the process of service learning, we're involving ourselves in our education and we're learning in a way that lecture can't teach us. We feel connected to each other, to our teachers, and to our communities. And service learning really turns us into leaders, not leaders in the futures, but leaders today.
Wonderful. Thank you, Bella. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. We hope you found some spark that you can take back home and tackle some of the issues that our communities are facing. There's a lot of challenges that are happening right now. And Bella, again, thank you for being here with us today. Congratulations again on your graduation. And we hope that you'll all join us for our next webinar on K-8 online service learning.
Thank you.